What would you do if you were kidnapped and held captive? Certainly, this is a difficult question to answer, as the situation is extremely traumatic and desperate. In this story, we will explore this very theme, following the experience of a character who went through a kidnapping and had to find strength to survive in a hostile and unfamiliar environment. Don't forget to like and subscribe to our channel so that you are always notified when we release a new video. Let's begin our story. Chapter 1: The Kidnapping. John was focused on his work, typing on his computer, when he heard a strange sound coming from outside. He got up and went to the window to see what was happening. That was when he saw a man wearing a black mask and carrying a gun. Before John could react, the man broke into his house and overpowered him. John tried to negotiate, but the kidnapper was determined to take him to a remote island where he would be held captive until he wrote a story just for him. John was taken to a boat, tied up and blindfolded. He tried to resist, but it was impossible. He didn't know what the kidnapper wanted and feared for his life. As the boat moved away from the coast, John tried to listen for any information that could help him escape. The kidnapper didn't talk much, but made it clear that he was a big fan of John and wanted him to write a story exclusively for him. John tried to argue that it wasn't possible, that his creative process didn't work that way, but the kidnapper was determined and threatened to kill him if he didn't comply with his demand. John was terrified and tried to think of an escape plan. He wondered how someone could be so obsessed as to kidnap someone and demand an exclusive story. He questioned if there was something more behind all of this. John knew he needed to find a way to escape before it was too late. Chapter 2: The Captivity. John was held captive in a locked room on the remote island, with no possibility of escape. He tried to negotiate with his kidnapper, but the man became increasingly violent. John started to get desperate and tried to find a way to escape. In the room, John tried to find something that could help him escape. He searched the room, looking for a hidden window or door, but nothing was found. He knew he needed to be careful and not draw attention to himself, so he started to pretend he was cooperating. Meanwhile, he tried to study his kidnapper and find out more about him. He noticed that the man seemed unbalanced and had a disturbing look in his eyes. John decided he needed to be smart to escape, so he started to write small notes about what he saw and heard. He knew he couldn't write an entire story, but he could at least try to put some hints in his notes. He also started to create an escape plan, hoping he could put it into action before it was too late. But time passed and the situation only got worse. The kidnapper became more and more violent and abusive, and John began to fear for his life. He knew he needed to do something quickly. Then, one night, John had an idea. He realized that the door to the room was poorly closed and decided to try to escape. Carefully, he opened the door and sneaked out of the room. He walked through the dark hallways of the house and tried to find a way out. But as he walked through the hallways, he heard a noise. He turned around and saw his kidnapper approaching him, ready to attack him. John tried to run, but he was captured and taken back to his room. He knew he needed to find another way to escape before it was too late. Chapter 3: The Discovery. John realized that his captor was obsessed with him and his literary career. He analyzed the captor's mannerisms and speech, trying to find a clue that would help him understand what motivated him to act this way. One night, while the captor was sleeping, John took the opportunity to look through his belongings and found an unfinished manuscript. He realized that it was a story written by the captor himself and became curious to learn more. John began reading the story and was surprised to discover that it was well written, although clearly inspired by his own writing. The story had a complex plot and well-crafted characters, but still lacked something to make it unique. That's when John had an idea. He realized that he could use his own experience to help the captor finish the story. He began giving the captor advice on how to improve the plot and characters, and even offered some suggestions for the ending of the story. Over time, the captor began to trust John and take him more seriously. They spent hours discussing the story, and slowly but surely, John began to notice that the captor was becoming less aggressive. Then, one night while they were discussing the story, John noticed that the captor had left the key to the room on the table. He saw the perfect opportunity to escape and decided to take action. John grabbed the key, opened the door, and silently left the house. He began running through the island, searching for a way to escape and finally be free. But he soon discovered that the island was huge and full of dangers. He realized that he needed to find help as soon as possible. Chapter 4: The Escape. John finally found an opportunity to escape when his kidnapper accidentally left the door to his room unlocked. He ran through the island, avoiding the kidnapper, and finally made it to a point of access to a boat that would take him back home. But before leaving the island, John discovered something shocking. While running through the bush, John stumbled upon an abandoned house. Upon entering, he found a pile of manuscripts written by the kidnapper. They were all stories that imitated John's style, but with different and equally terrifying endings. John was horrified to realize that the kidnapper had kidnapped other writers before him and kept them captive to write stories just for him. He felt responsible for helping to put an end to that practice and decided to report the kidnapper to the authorities as soon as he got home. After returning home and reporting the kidnapper, John tried to resume his normal routine. But he couldn't stop thinking about everything that had happened and how the kidnapper had been able to imitate his style so perfectly. Months later, John received an envelope in the mail with a letter and a manuscript. The letter was from the kidnapper, apologizing for what he had done and thanking John for helping him find his own voice as a writer. The manuscript was the story they had worked on together on the island. But the ending was completely different from what John had suggested. It was a shocking and surprising ending that left John speechless. John realized that the kidnapper had found his own voice as a writer and that, somehow, he had been a positive influence in his life. But he also realized that he never wanted to go through such a traumatic experience again and decided to be more careful with obsessive fans from now on. Reflection. An important reflection we can take from this story is the importance of being prepared to deal with extreme situations, such as a kidnapping. It is important to think of strategies to try to stay calm and maintain lucidity to seek opportunities to escape or communicate with the outside world. Additionally, the story also shows the importance of being aware of our surroundings and taking safety measures to avoid becoming a target of criminals. Prevention is always the best option, and small actions can make a difference in avoiding risky situations. Our video ends here. If you liked our story, tell us in the comments. Follow our channel to receive more interesting stories like this one. Also, if you have any suggestions for future video themes, we will be happy to hear and consider them. Thank you for watching, and until next time.